Hi there, I'm Rebecca and a really warm welcome back to my channel PumpkinBecki. In this week's video I am making this year's Christmas wreath for my front door. Let's get started. I'm going to be starting out with the same basic equipment I used this time last year. I have a copper wreath frame and you can still see it's got last year's wire on it, but that doesn't matter. It all helps to add to the base and things you can wire into, so I don't mind that. You could be good and cut it all off. I also got some wire cutters and my florist's wire, and that's going to help me form some little sheaves of foliage and berries that I can lay on repeatedly around the wreath frame. I went out and I gathered some yew, not me, yew. This is old man's beard, or clematis, a wild clematis, and this is the seed heads from it. Yeah, it looks a bit soggy because it's now raining / sleeting outside. I also managed to find this red dogwood growing in a hedgerow, so I cut some of that. Then if you're going to go gathering supplies from the wilderness, ask permission, or make sure that you take as little as possible. I was doing my cutting as if I were pruning a shrub, so all my cuts were clean and I was cutting just above leaf joints or stem joints, so that in the new year the plant will regrow from those points. And in fact, dogwood makes its best colour on new wood, so it should give a really fabulous display next year. What I certainly didn't do was take entire plants, and I did not take a whole plant's worth of seed heads. I did not stay on one plant and just denude it of everything it needs to sustain itself. I moved along the hedge line and I took a little bit here, a little bit there. I also looked in several places. I didn't just stay in one area. I moved around through various lanes and just took bits and pieces from here and there. And I also picked a few branches with these catkins on, which I thought were really sweet. Again, I did not take all of them, just took a few. And I made sure I got enough stem beyond the catkins for me to select how I want to wire it onto the wreath. So the first job to do is decide how I'm going to use my materials. Is the redwood going to be my base? Is the yew going to be my base? So I'm going to just fiddle around with some handfuls of things and see what I think. I think the red dogwood actually zings a bit more when it's on top of the deep dense yew, as opposed to being behind it. Even if I have small sprigs of it in front, I think that's going to get a bit lost, which would be a shame. You need to think about how big your wreath frame is and how big each sheaf will be. So let's say, for example, I cut this piece here-ish, so I am just left with what's up here. I can lay that onto my wreath form and it's going to overhang quite nicely. Alternatively, I could cut even further down and make it even bigger and floofier, or I could come in here and make the yew quite short and tight, and then the red maybe will overhang it. I've got a few options there. What I might even do is actually put a bed of the yew down first. Be as neat as you can while you're laying in your foliage. It all helps with the finished look. I've worked my way around to a section now where there isn't actually very much wire on here to help hold things in, so I'm just going to add a bit in. Doesn't have to be neat, doesn't have to be tight, it just needs to create a sort of a web that you can push leaves and branches into. Okay, I think that works as a base. It's going to get smushed around a little bit as I start to wire on the bunches, but that's a good start. And then the next thing to do is create my little sheaves of foliage and stuff. I'm just putting some gardening gloves on because my hands are so cold right now. The foliage here is really wet and that is sleety snow out there, so everything's absolutely bone crushingly cold. I'm going to keep the sections of clematis quite small. I don't want them to really cover the dogwood stems. I just want a hint of them here and there. I'm going to take a length of my wire and at the chosen position I'm going to wrap that really tightly around. Doesn't need to be many turns, and you don't need to secure the ends. That's sufficient just to hold it. I've just evened up the bottom for the moment. Right, I'm going to start making my bundles properly. It does pay to be as tidy as possible while you're doing this sort of thing. Keep your piles of materials as neat as you can. Makes it all go a lot faster. Do make sure you've wrapped your bundles really tightly, because as the foliage starts to dry out you'll find that pieces start to drop out. Right, so I've made some bundles and I'm going to now start laying them onto my wreath. What you could do if you'd made smaller ones, you could alternate the direction. You're basically going to be laying them diagonally. But I've made these quite full, so I might just continually lay them in one direction. That way all my red branches are going in one direction, as opposed to trying to do that where they might get a bit lost and a bit crazy in the middle. So I'm taking my florist wire and I'm going to start things off by re-wrapping this around the bunch. So that's really firm. And then I am going to position this on the wreath and wrap the wire right the way around. I'm going to try not to trap too much of the U as I go round, because I still want that to create the nice full look to the wreath. On the first one I've got the old man's beard, and on the second one I've actually used some catkins, so that we get a slightly different look as we come around. Yeah, I'm going to get to a point where they start to overlap. Just keep trying to weave in and try not to trap anything from the layer above. I think I actually want to add in even more dogwood, so I'm just going to start adding lumps of it. Try and sort of disguise any cut ends. what I think I might do just to finish it off is possibly lay a few pieces of the old man's beard in, just to boost that softness up, and I'll keep them quite tight to the centre section. So now I've got the framework all fixed, I should be able to just feed some extra little details in, and they'll hold quite firmly. If you try to keep the stem too long, it will probably just snap on you, so keep it short. And there we go. I believe that is done. It may not look too much right now in the dark in my shed, but once it's on the door, I think that's going to look really awesome. It's now the following day. It got far too dark and far too cold to continue filming yesterday. But here we go, my wreath all finished and in situ on the door. I am so pleased with it. Remember, it was made entirely from foraged material, and I think it's really rather smashing. Take you in nice and close. You can see the contrast of the red dogwood stems compared to the deep, deep green of the yew. You can see how fantastically the old man's beard is living up to its name. And the adorable little catkins just here and there. Right, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to rate, share and subscribe to me here on YouTube. And until next time, bye!